All right, welcome everybody to Derek's discussion with Rob, DeFelice. First of all, Rob, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. A little crazy week with, finals coming up and everything like that, but doing pretty good.
You were the coach, for an assistant coach, grad coach for the football team. Obviously, the football season ended. It seemed like they had a pretty, average year. How would you tell me a little bit about that experience of being, on the sidelines for the football team this past season?
So my official title was actually a student operations manager. So I wasn't technically a coach, but on game days I was on a headset doing some personnel stuff with the defensive line and linebackers and everything like that. So it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to do something like that, but not quite deserving of the title coach just yet. But it was a great experience. I was with the team for 4 years. I started off as just fixing helmets and everything like that. And through my hard work and the relationships that I built with the coaches and all of that, I earned my keep and earned a lot of respect from the coaching staff as well as the operations staff. And a lot of the other managers this year looked to me as a leader, which I really appreciated. And it was a great experience. The record that we finished with was not what we want it to be, but it could have been a lot worse. It was a lot of fun. I'm definitely gonna miss the team, but at this point it's on to bigger and better.
Yeah, and the team was actually not as bad as you look at, just because they were 4-4 in conference, 4-7 out of conference. The Pioneer League isn't as good as like every other conference pretty much in the FCS. Is the Pioneer League doesn't have, you know, give out scholarships. But you mentioned, being on the sidelines, having a headset. Is that something that you want to pursue as a coach, further down the line? Obviously, studying sports communication is very broad major. What do you see yourself doing, kind of outside of after college, kind of in the coaching realm, broadcasting, what type of realm do you see yourself further down the line?
Yeah, it's tough right now. It's getting to that point now that I'm a senior that I do need to know the answer to that question. And unfortunately, right now, I still don't think I do. Um, I have a lot of different opportunities in front of me, a lot of different avenues that I can go down, whether I go down in the broadcasting world or if I go down more so working for a league or a team or something like that. So I'm not sure. The one thing I know for sure, the end goal, the end all be all, I would love to be on camera doing some sort of broadcasting, whether it be a play-by-play announcer or the host of a show of some sort, doing something like that. That's the end goal. But as someone who's not going to be a retired professional athlete, the road to getting there is a little bit more difficult. I gotta climb up to get there somehow, and the way I can go to get there is all up to me and the opportunities that I take. So I have had the opportunity to meet with and informally interview with NFL teams about potentially doing equipment stuff or operation stuff with them. I have a few opportunities in broadcasting that I are coming up as well. So it's just kind of figuring out what opportunities are in front of me. I've always been the type of person that money will not define my success. So for me, when it comes to looking for a career, I want to be doing something that I'm happy doing, that I enjoy doing. And that's my biggest priority. I want to be able to be happy, enjoy what I'm doing, and just be able to support myself reasonably. But I don't need to be making a boatload of money to be happy. That's not where my priorities are at. And when it comes to coaching, I've always loved the idea of coaching, but I've always felt that coaching is a very, very demanding profession. A lot of coaches devote their lives to coaching, especially at the collegiate level, and then at the NFL level. So, somewhere down the road when I have a wife and kids and settle down with a family, I don't know if coaching would be sustainable for me, just because I want to be able to be involved in my family's lives. I want to be able to be there and spend time with them. And if I'm so caught up in my coaching, then it takes away from that a lot. So perhaps coaching, my kids' youth football team or high school team, even something like that. But I think that's the highest level of coaching that I would ever want to do.
And then we talk like pretty much all about sports. What do you say is just the significance of sports just in your life in general?
I've always been surrounded by sports. I always tell this story that when I was born, um, first place I went after I went to the hospital was a football game, because my dad was coaching at Alvern High School in New Hampshire. So my mom left the hospital with me and brought me right to watch one of his games. So, since the day I was born, I was exposed to the world of football and to the world of sports, and it's just always been a huge part of my life. I mean, I grew up, I played football, I played basketball, I danced, um, and so my life's schedule was formatted around sports. So, football dominated my life in the summer, in the spring, or in the fall, and then dance and basketball in the winter and the spring. And so everything else just kind of fit into the cracks. So it just always was a huge piece of my life. And I always had been fascinated with sports. My mom has always called me like a sports encyclopedia, that I always just have random facts for her and just can talk her ear off about sports, even though she doesn't really care to listen. Um, and I actually entered school as a political science major on the pre-law track. My whole life I said I wanted to be a lawyer. And then once I actually got to Marist and took one political theory course, I said, absolutely not. That's not what I want to be doing. That I can't see myself being happy doing this. And so I knew what I didn't want to do. And then I kind of had a moment of, I was lost. I knew for so long that was it. That's what I was going to do. And so then I got to a point where I said, well, what do I like to do? Well, I like to talk about sports, and, I think I can make a career out of that. So I guess sports communications is the way to go. And now that's where I'm at. But like I said, my life has always revolved around sports.
And how do you say, like, obviously you talk about, sports kind of being in your entire life. How do you say it affected you as a person in terms of, you know, sports brings people, leadership, teamwork, like so many different qualities that sports bring out of people. What would you say that is for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting. I think different sports taught me different lessons. Um, Football, learned how to work together as a team. I learned how to be a good leader. I learned how to, when to be tough in tough out situations. That I also, learned when to be vulnerable and be able to, express any injuries, or whether it's a physical injury or something mental that I was dealing with. I was able to open up about that. I learned so many huge life lessons on and off the football field as a result of my team. And I was blessed that my high school football coach was a wonderful man. His name's Kip Jackson. He genuinely cared about us as people outside of the sport of football. And his priority wasn't to win games, although we did win a lot of games. His priority was to make sure by the time we were done playing for his team that we were walking away as better men than when we had started playing for his team. And so I'm incredibly grateful for Coach Jackson and for the things that he did for us. And he really helped raise us to be better people, and made sure he instilled those lessons to us, and, how to be respectful, how to talk to people. He every day, every year before the first day of school, he would tell us, go to your classes, dress right, be respectful, sit in the front, like those types of things, that he wanted to see us be successful in beyond the sport of football. Because especially for a lot of high school athletes, football ends real quick. And so there's life after football, and he wanted us to be ready for that. And so I'm incredibly grateful for that.
And then what is one thing that most people don't know about you that's like really impactful?
I'd say that I dance. When I was in high school, a lot of people knew that I danced. It was kind of a thing I was mocked for in high school and growing up. I got all the names: ballet boy, dancer boy, all of that stuff. And, in high school, it really got to me, but I kind of just embraced it. And, I always called myself a Walmart brand Troy Bolton because I played football and I danced. So, but in college, I don't know why. Um, because it wasn't that I was ashamed of it or anything like that, but maybe it was because I stopped dancing since I got to college. But I don't really bring it up that often, and so a lot of people actually don't know that about me. That since I could walk, I've danced. I've won national titles as a dancer. I've traveled all over the country, competing, and it was a huge staple of my life. It was dance and football, that they always just went back and forth, and those were the two biggest pieces of my life. And so a lot of people just don't know that that was a thing in my life.
Obviously you mentioned kind of not dancing in college. For the foreseeable future, obviously trying to go into the sports media world, do you see dance as an opportunity of like an extracurricular activity? Like, what do you view dance as? Like, do you view that as more of like a relaxation of I don't have to worry about whether it be schoolwork or the mental grind of a sport? Like, what did you view dance as?
Um, it definitely was an escape. What people don't know is it very much so is the grind as well. To constantly be improving your body's strength, your body's flexibility, your ability to move in unison with the people that you're sharing a stage with, and memorize choreography and execute it perfectly. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And dancers make fun of athletes make fun of dancers, but as someone who has done both, I'd say they're equally difficult. They're different things about them make them difficult in different ways. Um, but it most certainly was a grind. And some people, not myself, were non-competitive dancers, and that's a little bit different. But there's still so much of that grind of improving yourself. But for me as a competitive dancer, football season ended, and then I rolled right into the preparation of getting ready for dance competition season. And then from January through sometimes July, if we were going to nationals, it was nonstop preparation for whatever dance competition we had that weekend or in 2 weeks, and so on. So it was just as much of a grind as football was, and just as competitive, and required as much focus and dedication. And, you put hours and hours into practice on a sports field or court, and it's the same for dance. After my schedule during dance competition season, I'd get out of school at 2:15, go right to the studio, and then I'd be there until 8 o'clock at night, 4 days a week. And then on weekends we'd be traveling to compete. So it is kind of not understood by a lot of people. And I think when people experience it, it's kind of very overwhelming because it's not what they expected. But dance was an escape for sure. Whenever I stepped in class, on stage, whatever it may be, as soon as that music started playing, the world around me just stopped. Like nothing else around me matters. I'm just in that moment, engulfed by what I am doing in the here and the now. And so to just be able to kind of drown out the noise, and whether it was an organized class, on stage at a competition, or if I'm just in a room with music playing and I'm just moving to the music, it has always been an escape for me.
And then you talk about dance in football at the same time. How mentally draining was it? Because obviously, nowadays mental health has been a huge topic of discussion, especially with the NFL, concussions, CTE, all this and that. But also dance, from my personal opinion, I feel like dance might be more mentally draining. Although, as we see stuff going on, CTE is a huge factor. So talk to me about how mentally draining doing both was for you, as those are huge, mental, like huge things with your mental health.
Absolutely. It certainly was challenging at times. uh I like to think that I would always rely on one to help the other. Dance helped me with my footwork, in football helped me with my lateral and vertical quickness. And then football helped me with my strength. I in dance I lift girls above my head with one arm. And the hours I spend in the weight room for football help me to be able to do things like that. So they work together to help me be better at each one of them. But mentally it was certainly challenging. Especially in the fall, because in the fall I kind of step away from dance a little bit to focus more on football. But any spare time I have, I still spent in the studio. I still was there. I was still, doing everything that I could. So it was challenging, and it requires a lot of dedication and a lot of time and effort put into it. I On top of that, when I was younger, and I tend to get made fun of a lot more when I was younger, that was difficult as well, because I questioned doing something that I loved to do because of what other people thought about it. So that caused a lot of emotional distress. And a lot of the same stressors as being a part of a team sport carry over in the world of dance. If you suffer an injury, or if you're sick and you can't practice, or God forbid you can't compete, that weighs heavy on a person to think, I let my team down, I'm not there, I can't be there for my team. And that's hard. And so the two of them together was difficult for sure. But always in the end, the payout was incredible and entirely worth it. And the last thing I'll add to that was there's one thing that I was fortunate about when it came to dance was I was surrounded by a community of incredibly supportive, loving people. A lot of competitive studios that I witnessed in my time are very, very cutthroat. And, the dance teachers don't particularly care about their dancers, much like a lot of coaches wouldn't care about their athletes. They care more about winning. But, both my high school football coach and my dance teachers were incredibly supportive and cared about us outside of it. And on top of that, I was a male dancer. So a lot of the things that female dancers experience, such as body image issues and stuff like that, didn't really affect me, because for me as a guy, it didn't matter what my body looked like, because I was the only guy on stage. So it wasn't like I had to look like anybody else or be like anybody else. I was just myself. So, I never had to struggle with those kinds of mental stressors of all of that. But it is certainly a prevalent issue in the world of dance. And I think I got very lucky with the people I was surrounded by.
All right. And now moving over to part two. Reports just surfaced. Jimmy Garoppolo is out for 6 to 8 weeks. Everybody was expecting him to be out for the season. He's out for the regular season. He most likely will miss, the wild card. Brock Purdy seems to be the quarterback. Personally, I'm a fan of Brock Purdy, guy out of Iowa State. Matt Campbell was the head coach. I'm a huge fan of Matt Campbell. He knows how to coach his, players in college. First of all, what are your initial thoughts of Jimmy Garoppolo being out for 6 to 8 weeks?
I mean, it's tough for the Niners. I mean, if you think about it, he was their second string quarterback. They lost Trey Lance for the season, and then they had to turn to Jimmy, I think, kind of reluctantly, given the offseason drama of that whole situation. But they better be thanking their lucky stars they had him, because I mean that Niners offense has been on fire this season, and he's been a staple of that offense and keeping things moving. And I mean, their defense has carried them when they had to. So they're a very, very good football team right now, arguably one of the best, and could really make a deep run. And I mean, Brock Purdy, yes, he's good. I'll give him that. He looked good this past weekend, but he's still young. He's inexperienced. He's not a guy that's going to be able to win you a Super Bowl, in my opinion. I don't think he has enough time on the field under his belt for that. I think his job right now and all his focus needs to be is surviving the remainder of the regular season to get them to that postseason when Jimmy can be healthy and can kind of take the reins back. Ironically enough, this is starting to remind me of the 2015 Broncos when they won their Super Bowl, because Peyton Manning got hurt around this time of the year. He went down for the remainder of the rest of the season, and then Brock Osweiler took over for the Broncos, carried them the rest of the way, and got them into the playoffs. And once they got to the playoffs, Peyton Manning took things back over, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. So, and their defense was a powerhouse that year as well. So a lot of this 49ers team is starting to look a lot like the 2015 Broncos. And, we all know that the Broncos won a Super Bowl that year. So who knows what the outcome will be for the Niners. But I like I said, I think that Brock just needs to kind of get them through the remainder of the regular season and get as many wins as he can. He's got a little bit of a safety because the other teams in his conference or in his division are not looking too hot right now. So, he doesn't have to be perfect. He doesn't have to, be the next Tom Brady for the next few weeks, but there is some expectation for there. And when the original reports surfaced, once Baker Mayfield was released that they were going to sign him, I was hoping against it. And I know the Rams just claimed him off waivers. So, but I thought that Brock is the guy for right now. And there was no need to go out and get someone like Baker. I felt that was entirely unnecessary. So I'm glad they kind of stuck with their guns and interested to see what he does.
Yeah, I think when you're comparing the 2015 season of the Broncos to the 49ers this season, I think the only difference is the skill positions on offense for the 49ers, having Debo, having Kittle, and having Christian McCaffrey. That's just an unstoppable offense. Here's what I'll say about Brock Purdy. I disagree. I think Brock Purdy could win the San Francisco 49ers a Super Bowl. He's not going to win because of him. He's going to win because of the other pieces. I think Brock Purdy has the ability to be a starting quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a franchise guy. I think he's more of a stopgap quarterback. I think he's a solid starting quarterback, and I think the 49ers are in good shape. You know, you mentioned Baker Mayfield going to the Rams. That's a very interesting situation. Given the case of the Rams, they have 3 or 4 wins. They don't really have much of a shot at the playoffs unless if the Giants lose out and other teams lose out and they win out. What are your thoughts on the Rams trying to get Baker Mayfield? Do you think they got him so the 49ers wouldn't get him? Just what are your thoughts on what the Rams are doing getting Baker Mayfield?
I think it's an interesting signing. I had a few questions about it myself. Obviously they made it kind of that. I mean, there's no question that Matt Stafford's their guy. So it's not like Baker's going to be showing up there competing for a starting role or anything like that. Like that's not going to happen. So I don't really know what their play was in claiming him off the wires or off the waivers. Maybe they just want a reliable backup that they can fit into their system and have ready to rock for next year. And they're already starting to prepare for the coming season. But I don't see a professional football team claiming a player off waivers like that just so another team can't have them. I don't really see that happening, especially given the situation that the Rams are in and how poorly they've been doing this season. Perhaps if they were competing to win that division and it was a matter of winning the division, possibly, but I don't otherwise. I don't know about that.
We just got breaking news. I don't like this. You won't like this either. Aaron Judge is going to the San Francisco Giants.
Very foolish.
What?
I literally just got an alert. Aaron Judge got signed by the San Francisco Giants. Personally, I'm stunned by this report. I know the San Francisco Giants went 9 years. Aaron Judge was talking to Tom Brady. Your face says it all right now. I'm stunned. I just got this report from John Heyman. What are your just initial thoughts right off the top of your dome? Aaron Judge going to the San Francisco Giants. I'm going to look at the details of this move.
Oh my, I'm stunned. I'm disappointed as a Yankees fan. You never want to see that. I was really hoping that he was going to come back. What I had been saying all along, and credit to Nick Bate on this, because he was the one who kind of mentioned this to me, and I really bought in on it. What it came down to for Judge was if he went anywhere else, he's the face of baseball in New York right now, or was the face of baseball in New York. You're going to somewhere like the San Francisco Giants, you're not going to be the face of baseball anymore. And, you're going to get the money you want either way. Maybe San Francisco is going to give you a little bit more money than than the Yankees could afford. But, it seemed like that New York was his home and that's where he wanted to be. So money and contract negotiations aside, that's where I thought he was going to stay. And even Nick said last night, until I'm shown otherwise, I don't believe that he's going anywhere else. So I'm genuinely shocked.
Yeah, and Andy, I'm just looking at Twitter right now. It's blowing up. My phone is blowing up by reports. Andy Martino says, as of 5:22 p.m., the Yankees have now been told that they are out on the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, which is absolutely surprising. As we speak, it's 5:25, and we just found out that's 3 minutes. I'm not happy because of that. However, if I'm Aaron Judge, I completely understand the move going to San Francisco. He wants to be home. I was reading on Instagram earlier today, Barry Bonds did the same exact thing, the same exact day, December 6th. He signed with the San Francisco Giants when he was in free agency. I'm not surprised. I'm upset. But at the beginning of this offseason, I said, hey, don't be surprised if Aaron Judge goes to the San Francisco Giants. It kind of is what it is at this point. The Yankees need to really do something. It's honestly, you lose Judge, you got to find a right fielder. This is what I would do if I'm the New York Yankees right now, and I'm really upset because Cody Bellinger would have been my right fielder. Cody Bellinger signed today with the Blue Jays, and that just irritates me even more of the fact of what are we doing here? Left fielder and right fielder. You got to look at Benintendi right now. He's got to be a main, interest for the Yankees. You look at Susugo, the Japanese left fielder. That's another guy. You add 2 guys in the left field, put one in right, put one in left. I don't know. Stan's going to have to play right field. Stan's going to have to play right field. There's no question about it. I know they're in on Brian Reynolds. Don't be surprised if in a couple days that the Yankees make a trade for Brian Reynolds. Here's what I'll say. If you're going after Brian Reynolds, these are some guys that are untouchable for me. I am not trading Jason Dominguez at all costs. I love Jason Dominguez. That is a guy I want. Peraza, Volpe, you can choose. Personally, I keep both of them. I would trade Gleyber Torres. I think Donaldson or Hicks will be on the move, either one of them. I think Hicks is on an untradeable contract. Here's a name that I'll bring up, and I think he will be a New York Yankee in the next 46 to 72 hours. I think Carlos Rodon is going to be a New York Yankee based on the fact that they lost on Aaron Judge. I think he's going to get a $35 million contract worth 5 or 6 years. I think they have to do it. You're talking about a starting staff that's good right now, but they need to get better. Aaron Judge going to the San Francisco Giants is just, to me, breaking news. I know you have your hands up. What are your what were you going to say here?
John Heyman just followed his tweet and said, Giants say they have not heard on Aaron Judge. My apologies for jumping the gun.
Okay, so that just really is interesting to see that it might not be a done deal. So all of that talk that we've had about Judge going to the Giants could be false. This is insane. This is honestly insane. We're on a podcast right here, and you're telling me Aaron Judge could be going to the Giants, might not be going to the Giants. This is crazy. Honestly, I would not be surprised either way. Honestly, if since the report came out from John Heyman saying that Aaron Judge is going to be a San Francisco Giant, I think Judge is going to stay. Judge does not like reports coming out. He talked about this with Brian Cashman with a $212 million contract. He didn't want that to come out. This, to me, I'm stunned at everything that's going on right now in the past 20 minutes, 5 minutes. You're talking about Judge going to the Giants. We're talking Judge might not go to the Giants. Carlos Rodon, all these outfielders. To me, it's insane. And, before we continue on Judge, I just want to throw out these names talking about the MLB offseason. Jacob deGrom goes to Texas. My opinion, not a surprise at all. I expected that. Money was kind of a little interesting to see the 5-year and all the money that he's getting. Overall, not a surprise. Verlander goes to the Mets. I thought he was going to the Dodgers, but I can understand the Mets jumping the gun after losing deGrom. Just a couple minutes ago, 20 to 30 minutes ago, Andrew Heaney's going to the Rangers. Rangers are starting to spend. You saw the Angels earlier get the lefty Tyler Anderson. That seems like it's going to be competitive for second base. But, Trey Turner going to the Phillies is not a surprise in my opinion. The big surprise is that contract. 11 years for Trey Turner. I love Trey Turner. My only concern is how is that speed going to be 7 years down the road? Because he's such a speed guy. I get it. He's got pop. I get it. He can run the bases. I get it. He can play defense. But as you old, that is going to decrease. And then to me, what I was happy about today, I guess you would say, before the Aaron Judge, shenanigans happened, Tommy Kahnle is coming back. $5.5 million per year. He's getting 2 years, $11 million. I like that signing. I think it's good. Beef up the bullpen, help that out. But, what are your thoughts so far on the offseason before what's happened today with Aaron Judge?
Yeah, a few things. The deGrom signing, not really surprised by that either. Texas had all the money to spend, so it made sense that they would give him the money that he would want in the contract that he would want. And I don't think Texas is done making moves yet either. They still, even with giving him that contract, they have a ton of money. Verlander, I agree with you. I was a little surprised by that. I think that the Mets started to panic that they didn't have an ace and that they were just trying to go out and hunt. And now that they knew they didn't have to spend money on deGrom, they had money to blow. The Trey Turner one, the years is also tripping me up. I mean, by the time that contract's done, he's going to be in his 40s by the time that contract is over. That is nuts to be able, you're putting that much trust into a player like that. But the biggest thing that I want to hear your opinions on, and I want to talk to you about, because I know you were very, very vocal about this on social media on the tail end of the postseason for the Yankees. The Yankees extend Cashman. What are your thoughts on Cashman?
See, this is what I think. I want to change just based on the fact that something wasn't going right. They were losing. So honestly, if Boone and Cashman stay, I don't love it. I'm more of a cat. I like Cashman. I think he's a very good general manager. I think at some point they're going to need a change. I thought maybe this year was the change, but I'm okay with 4. I'm a little concerned about 4 years. I would have gave him 3 years just so Boone and Cashman were on the same trajectory contract wise. I'm okay with front office standpoint. My major concern is this offseason because if the reports end up being true, which I'm hearing from sources, the reason Heyman brought this tweet out is Heyman wanted to be before Passan because he's never before Jeff Passan on reports. That's interesting in a nutshell, but I think it comes down to Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge leaves to San Francisco, I think I'm not saying the Yankees are in bad shape. I don't think they're in good shape by any stretch of the imaginations. Whatever needs to happen, the Yankees need to make moves from a standpoint of I love Gleyber Torres. I think he's a great second baseman. I think he's a below average shortstop. You keep him at second base, that's what you would do. Personally, that $11 million contract is aggravating me. I understand the Steinbrenner now who wants to cut payroll. We don't want to spend like George did. It's insane. We don't want to be like the Mets. Be more financially stable. Trade Gleyber. I'm done. Trade him. Love him to death. Don't get me wrong. Trade Gleyber Torres. Donaldson Hicks. Personally, I want to get rid of both of them. I think they're both absolutely garbage. That's just not a solution that's going to happen. So if you were to choose those, I get rid of Donaldson. Let's say we pay $5-10 million of that contract. I think we can trade him out for some prospect, single A, whatever. Get rid of him. You got to figure out this offseason. Catcher, you might think this is a little odd. I personally would trade Higashioka. I'd put Ben Wortvet as the backup catcher. He's a left-handed bat. I want to see more lefties. I'm sick and tired of righty. Anthony Rizzo at first base. I'm surprised at that signing, how early it was. I thought it would detail that Judge would come to the Yankees. We don't know yet. Torres, I think second base, this is what I do. If you lose Judge or you keep Judge, I'm sick and tired of it. You got to change. Second base, Volpe, Peraza, either way. I don't care who plays where. I'm hearing reports that Volpe is not as good defensively. So put him at second base, put Peraza at shortstop. Third base, I put Isaiah Kiner Falefa because you're trading Donaldson. I understand you can add pieces in that mix, which I would seriously look at if you're losing a Judge. Left field, I'm not a huge Benintendi guy. Although I understand Benintendi's, presence and what he needs to the Yankees, I think they need lefty bats. Whatever happens, I think Benintendi's a lefty bat. Brian Reynolds, I like Brian Reynolds. Don't get me wrong. I think the price is going to be too much. I wouldn't trade for Brian Reynolds. I'm more upset that Cody Bellinger got signed today and Judge is going to get signed in the next few days. If the Yankees lost Aaron Judge, I wanted Cody Bellinger. You can talk all you want about how he's going to be the next Joey Gallo. That is absolute bullcrap because Cody Bellinger can play first base. The Yankees do not have a backup first baseman besides DJ LeMahieu, and DJ LeMahieu is getting old. There was talks that they trade DJ to the Cubs. That's probably not going to happen with the injury. I think there's so much the Yankees can do. I just need to see action this offseason, whatever happens. I know that's a lot to ask for the New York Yankees to see action, but we'll see what happens coming up. After I discussed my thoughts on what the Yankees kind of need to do after you asked the question about Cashman and Boone, just what are your thoughts so far?
I've been a Boone guy. I kind of like him. I thought firing him at the end of the season was kind of jumping the gun. I mean, they've made postseason runs. Yes, a postseason run isn't a ring. I understand that, but they're not a team that has not made the postseason or hasn't been able to be successful. It's just a matter of how you judge success. Now, in terms of the Yankees free agency, I think if Judge leaves, that opens up money that you weren't expecting to spend, but I don't think they should make a move like the Mets made where they, kind of jump the gun and spend too much money on someone that just to fill a gap in losing Judge. I think another huge area that they need to address is their infield. I mean, how many different guys played shortstop for them this year and none of them seem to fit? I'm not a huge IKF guy. I don't like him. I think his performance in the postseason wasn't good. I agree that Donaldson needs to go. He looked horrible in the postseason. It just, there's some moves aside from Judge, and I know Judge has kind of clouded the talk of Yankees free agency. The other thing that's interesting is the Yankees have said a lot that they have a lot of young, exciting guys in prospects, but haven't really talked about who or what positions or what. So, if you have these guys in the field system that you're expecting to bring into play, if any team is good at doing that, it's the Yankees. So, interested to see what they do with that, but I don't believe it until I see it type of situation. So I'm not too sure about that, but I think someone like Xander Bogaerts, if he's still available, and if you have money to spend, why not? You're shaking your head. You don't agree. But I do think shortstop is a position that has been hurting a lot for them, and could use some improvement.
That's fair. The only thing I would say is if the Yankees were to get a shortstop, I would have gotten Trey Turner. Personally, I don't like any of the other shortstops. Carlos Correa, I get it. You can move him over to third base when you have your shortstop ready. That'd be the only thing. I just don't want a long-term contract for Correa. Bogaerts, I get it. He's a good shortstop. Defensively, everybody complained about Derek Jeter defensively. Personally, I thought Jeter was fine as a shortstop. I hate all the hate around Jeter just because I'm a Jeter guy. But I think if you do Bogaerts, it's going to be the same thing. He's not great defensively, and that's an issue there. I think Dansby Swanson, he's not coming to New York. That's just not realistic. They're going to go with a higher tier guy. I think when you're talking about prospects, it's middle infield prospects that they have. So if you want to go out again shortstop, it's going to be a short-term deal. I'm not going to go over the moon for some of these other guys. I think the Yankees are in a good spot. I think the one thing that they need to do is they need to get more left-handed hitting. I think the biggest question mark is kind of Judge. I think everything kind of surrounds Judge. Like we've mentioned, I think Judge is the piece. I think with Judge possibly signing today, possibly signing tomorrow, I think we'll hear what Judge is doing in the next 48 to 72 hours. I think I would bet on that. I think the question is, what would the Yankees do after Judge? I think that's the biggest question mark. I think the Yankees offseason is going to be okay. I believe in Cashman. I think Cashman is the right guy. The only thing I'd say is Yankees got a lot of moves to do. It's going to be a lot of chaos. The only thing I want to speak to real quickly is you mentioned not a big fan of IKF. I don't hate IKF by any stretch of the imaginations. I think he's more of a bench player. The only thing I would say, though, is he is very good contact. He's a contact hitter. The Yankees lack contact. So who do you think had a worse postseason real quick? Isaiah Kiner-Falefa or Josh Donaldson? Personally, I think it's Donaldson, and it's not even close.
I think it's Donaldson, and it's not even close as well. Two instances come to mind in the postseason. The one first is when he pimped that home run that he hit, that he thought he hit, that actually bounced off the wall and came back in, and he got thrown out at first. Like, you're hitting a shallow ball in a stadium that's not even close to being out in any other ballpark, and you're going to start walking like you just clobbered the ball out of the ballpark. Like, you got to run that out. You got to make that play, especially in crunch situations like that. Nick was infuriated. I was pissed. I thought it was a horrible look. And then the other instance was the dropped ball in the Astros series, right?
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Like that's bush league. That should not be happening in a postseason game. That shouldn't be happening, period. That you have to be able, that your team, your coaches should be able to trust you to be able to make those plays in those types of situations. I don't care what the excuse was around it. It was horrible. I was infuriated when I saw it. And it, especially in a situation that they were in, you have to make that kind of play. And it's just bad.
The only thing I'd say is that home run I actually did think was a home run. The only thing is what I don't like, and it's the same thing kind of with Gleyber Torres, and it's a bunch of guys. It was also with Robinson Cano. I don't care if the ball is hit 500 feet. You run that ball out until you can guarantee with 100% certainty that ball is out. I don't care if you're going to do a bat trick or whatever the hell you're going to do. Don't do it. Sick and tired of it. Wait till the ball is 100% guaranteed out. If it's in the regular season, okay, I can kind of live with that. We are talking about postseason time, and we're talking year after year. The Yankees have not been able to win a World Series, and that aggravates me. That pisses me off, and they need to get something going. And, just to wrap it up, we talked a lot about Judge. what is going on like with your mind right now? To me, I'm like in 100 different spots just because of Judge. Just real quickly, what are your thoughts on Judge?
I mean, at the bottom, at the end of it, they have to get him back. They got to do what they can, spend the money that they got to. I think there is life after Judge. I don't think, if he does leave wherever he may go, if he leaves, that they're going to, turn it in for the season and their season's over before it already started. I think there's life after Judge. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people aren't necessarily understanding, is that they will survive without him if that comes. But if he's still on the table, they got to get him back. He's a franchise player. He's the backbone of their outfield. He's coming off an MVP season. How do you not re-sign the league MVP? In what world? Like, if you have the opportunity to sign him, you got to get it done. And so I'm following Twitter, going nuts right now, trying to figure out what's true and what's not true right now. But I think as a sports fan and as a Yankees fan, you got to get him back.
Yeah, I think the only thing is, you say he won the MVP, he had 62 home runs. You got to get him back. I don't think it's necessarily you got to get him back. I think you got to get him back because you're the New York Yankees. If you're talking about the Oakland A's or another team like the Milwaukee Brewers or one of those teams that are quote unquote short on funds, I don't think it's as big of a need as it is for the Yankees. It's been a lot of fun talking Aaron Judge pretty much, as, pretty much this entire podcast went kind of sideways with Judge, no Judge, kind of everything. Certainly very entertaining. And, I'll make sure to put in something, whether Judge does leave, whether Judge stays, in this podcast, to make sure that our viewers are up to date with the latest news. And, thank you, Rob, for joining me. All right, guys, now with the latest news, a lot of offseason, coming around in the MLB season. Obviously, you watched my interview with Rob DeFelice talking, baseball, talking NFL, mainly focused on Aaron Judge. And Aaron Judge signed with the New York Yankees Wednesday in the morning, around 8:30, 8:40. And his contract, 9 years, 360, what the original estimation was for the San Francisco Giants. He becomes a Yankee. Mitch Haniger became a San Francisco Giant. Taijuan Walker became a Philadelphia Philly. Josh Bell goes to the Cleveland Indians. Jamison Tyone becomes a Chicago Cub, joining Cody Bellinger. Jose Quintana is now going to be a Met. Wilson Contreras going to the Cardinals for a 5-year deal. That's an interesting story. Why a 5-year deal? I think they got him with the competition with the Astros and other teams, especially with the catcher market not too strong. And they didn't want to obviously give up Gorman or top prospects to try to get Sean Murphy or one of the catchers from the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's interesting there. But the Red Sox made some very interesting moves today. Kenley Jansen back now with the Red Sox. He's most likely going to be their closer. I get it. He's 34, but that's a good addition. Help out their bullpen. And then Yoshida, the left fielder from Japan, he also goes to the Red Sox on a 5-year deal. So it's interesting to see the Red Sox making moves. There's been no movement with Xander Bogaerts, so we'll see if Xander remains a Red Sox. If he leaves, Padres could be a team that's interested as well. In Xander, Padres offered Judge a contract. They offered Turner a contract. Both teams said no, went to a team for less money. But, Rodon is still unsigned. Reports are the Yankees are in, the Mets are in, the Giants are in. I anticipate Carlos Rodon to be signed in the next couple of days. Should be interesting to see what happens with him and then kind of the rest of the pitching market. Now moving on to Aaron Judge. This is pretty much what everybody's been talking about this entire offseason, but in particular about Aaron Judge. You're talking about putting him in right field, and if you're the New York Yankees, you saw Cody Bellinger got signed by the Cubs. They had to get a power bat. Stanton can't be the only power bat, so you add Judge. Judge is at right field. The biggest question mark for the Yankees is additions and subtractions. When you're talking about subtractions, are they going to get rid of Donaldson? Are they going to trade Gleyber Torres? Are they going to, make a move in the outfield? Are they going to try to trade Hicks? Contracts are huge. Rodon is a huge question mark too, but
if they get Rodon's looking for $30 to $35 million, 5 or 6 years. So we'll see there. Their starter rotation looks so far so good, but that should be interesting there. I think at the end of the day, the New York Yankees are at a good, point in time where you get Aaron Judge. Talks now happening with Judge. Could he be the captain? Could he not be? But, Aaron Judge to the New York Yankees pretty much changes this entire landscape for the New York Yankees. And it's huge because Aaron Judge, number 99, you put that guy in the lineup every single day, and it just makes the New York Yankees better at all three levels. You're talking about power. He adds power. He's got contact, his leadership skills, everything about that. But, when we're going to talk Yankees here, real quickly, Aaron Judge going to the Yankees, it's number one, sets up the market. That's huge for, free agency and players in free agency as well. But the thing is here, it is 9 years. And then left field is a huge opening still in the outfield. There's talk Brian Reynolds could go there. Who knows? There's talk Benintendi could go there. Who knows? If they don't re-sign anybody, are they content with Oswaldo Cabrera playing left field? That's a question mark. But when you're looking at the New York Yankees, the biggest question mark is the infield. Obviously, you got to add an outfielder, but you can kind of, figure things out a little bit. It's about the infield. First base is definitely going to be Anthony Rizzo, and the rest we have absolutely no clue. Catcher position has been Jose Trevino. Looks like it will be. Looks like they will keep Jose Trevino, and reports are saying Higashioka will stay as well. That could be interesting. Do the Yankees trade him? Do they believe in Ben Rortvedt? They also got Austin Wells, coming up sooner rather than later. Who knows what they'll see. At the end of the day, Aaron Judge is pretty much the biggest topic today. And, as of, Wednesday, December 7th, there's been a truckload of moves this Wednesday, but a lot of minor moves. Like I mentioned, Red Sox making moves, players going back and forth. No other major news besides Judge going to the Yankees. It should certainly be interesting if Rodon goes in the next couple hours or, what happens there. But, I'll make sure to keep you guys updated with all the latest news and updates on the MLB, free agency, and, throughout this podcast as well. Thank you guys for joining us on Derek's discussion. I just want to thank Rob for a great interview and great guest to have, especially with having breaking news happen in real live time, during our episode, and, continue to watch Derek's discussions in the future. Thank you guys.